Hello everyone, Dreaming Out here. Today I'm gonna be responding to a video from a user called 1714 Paradox. I'll leave a link below to his video and let's hear what he has to say about atheism, God and evolution.
So how or what can we know about the existence of God? Atheists have a very high regard for reason but are very limited in their approach because they only believe in things that can be measured or quantified. Since God does not fall into that criteria, there isn't much viable evidence in their eyes to prove his existence.
It's funny how you say that searching for proof and evidence is a limit, when in your video you're always discussing about proof and evidence for a theistic view of the world. Plus, try building a PC like the one you use to upload your video without proof and evidence. See how that works out, okay?
And furthermore, since evolution does a good job of explaining the origins of life, God is unnecessary, right?
No, wait a minute. Now, evolution talks about evolution. It doesn't talk about the origin of life, okay? The theory of evolution discusses the evolution of life that's already there. If you want to talk about the origin of life, you have to talk about abiogenesis, which is another theory completely. Okay, they're not the same thing. Charles Darwin wrote a book called On the Origin of Species. It wasn't about the origin of life, it was about the origin of the diversity we see in nature. So, where do all the species of different animals and plants come from? Why do so many species exist? Why some are extinct? Why are they so different? And why do they evolve? It's not about the origin.
You see, an atheist logic is almost perfect except for a couple of major areas, and when you begin to poke at these areas, the entire theory begins to crumble.
Sounds interesting? Fair enough, let's poke these areas.
You claim that there is no God. You claim that this is all that we have. You claim that there is no absolute truth and that I'm wasting my life for believing in it.
Well, no, I wouldn't say you're wasting your life. I mean, atheism is just about not believing in a God. And it's not about any value that comes along with that. I mean, your life is your life, and I don't think any atheist could say that you're wasting it just because you believe in God, or you're not wasting it just because you don't believe in God. I mean, I don't think that believing or not in God is an objective criteria to define what one could call wasting your life.
You claim that life, the universe, and everything else is the result of a random freak accident of the cosmos. But if that's true, why should I believe your logic? I mean, if you really are the result of a random freak accident of the cosmos, can your reasoning abilities really be trusted?
No, so there's nothing random about things like the origin of life, okay? So you have an uncertainty level, but of course you have underlying physical laws that determine what happens and how it happens. If you take something and throw it out the window, it will fall in exactly like described by Newton's gravity laws, okay? It won't just pop in the air or disappear, etc., etc. It won't do random things. So life isn't a random freak accident. It happened on Earth because the conditions were right, because everything was right for life to happen. It wasn't a random freak accident. Of course, that doesn't mean that God was involved, that there's a design. That just means that exactly like the something you throw out the window didn't go random, it went down, and it went down in just like described by Newton's law. In the same way, in our solar system, on planet Earth, where the conditions were right, the chemistry didn't just do random things. It went in the direction of prebiotic chemistry and then life. So it's a deterministic universe, you might say.
But let's say I believe you. Let's say that I trust your reasoning. I'll accept that the billions of stars in the sky just happen to make themselves and just happen to generate their own power to keep on course.
No, again, stars don't just happen. It's not about chance. It's about physical laws. Have you ever heard of nuclear fusion? Have you ever heard of stellar evolution? Stars, there are physical laws that explain exactly why stars act like they act, how stars evolve, how they give light, etc. etc. There's no need to believe or to act like it's something fortunate and spooky.
I'll accept that the land that we live on just happened to have topsoil in order for everything to grow.
No, again, it's not about chance, okay? So it's not something fortunate, it's perfectly explainable with physical and chemical laws. The reason why we have soil on top of Earth is because the way Earth evolved. So heavier elements tend to go to the center, to go to the nucleus, where we have, for example, iron and nickel, and lighter elements like carbon and oxygen tend to stick up in the ground. Then we have erosion processes, we have life, we have a series of things that created the soil you're familiar with. It's nothing fortuite, okay? It's perfectly explainable with physical laws.
I'll accept that the air that we breathe just happened to be the perfect composition to support our life.
No, it's not like that. You've got it all wrong. It's the contrary. It's not that we are fortunate that there's the right type of air for us to breathe. It's that we adapted to the type of air that was already here. So, for example, if you go to the bottom of the oceans, you will find life forms that are not adapted to conditions on top of the oceans. So that's because they adapted to their conditions. We adapted to our conditions. It's not the other way around.
For a single minute will I consider how the Earth spins around the Sun at a given speed of 67,000 miles per hour to give us night and day, and how during that spin it tilts just perfectly to give us our seasons, and how the Sun is just the right distance from us and is at just the right temperature to sustain our life.
And again, it's the other way around. It's not that we are fortunate, we are just adapted to the conditions that we live in today. If you were to go 3.5 billion years ago, the conditions on Earth were completely different, seasons were completely different, the spin of the Earth was different, and you had a different inclination, a different magnetic field, so a different atmosphere, etc., etc. But there was life. But there was life that was adapted to a completely different environment. We are adapted to this environment, and it seems fortunate to us to have season, disinclination, etc., etc. But it's not that we're fortunate, we just adapted to these conditions.
And the human body, the perfect combination of bones, muscles, nerves, and blood cells, and how the human brain is capable of doing far greater things than any supercomputer we've ever invented, and how the kidneys contain 280 miles of tiny tubes designed to filter water from the blood, 185 quarts of it a day. And the blood coming from the 4-chamber, 4-valve pump that we call the heart, pumping 5,000 gallons of blood a day, supplying our circulatory system with over 12,000 miles of vessels to sustain our life. I will accept that all of that is an accident.
Well, don't accept it, because it wasn't something that happened by chance. It wasn't a freak accident like you call it. It was something governed by deterministic physical, chemical, biological laws. The way our body is made, the way our kidneys, heart, vessels, brain, etc. are made, all these complicated things are the way they are because of evolution, because we adapted to the environment in which we live. We have behind us millions, billions of years, in fact, of life evolution, and you can trace down every single part. You can trace down how neurons evolved, you can trace down how cells evolved, etc., etc. It All of this was governed by physical, biological, and chemical laws. It has nothing to do with chance and accidents.
Because there is still one major issue. What is the origin of life? Most evolutionists agree with the theory of the Big Bang.
This is so bad. This is it's incredible. I mean, you managed to stuff in so few words such an immense quantity of ignorance that I'm surprised you're still alive. I mean, you should have exploded. First of all, evolutionists don't talk about the origin of life. The origin of life is another thing. Evolutionists talk about the evolution of life. Abiogenesis is about the origin of life. And the Big Bang is about the evolution of the universe. It's not about how the universe began, it's not about how life began, and it's certainly, absolutely not about how life evolved. Do you understand? Big Bang, evolution of universe. Abiogenesis, birth of life. Evolution, evolution of life.
Here's what I see. In order for there to be a Big Bang, there has to be at least two molecules that collide with each other, or one to spontaneously combust.
God, I can't believe it. I can't. This is far beyond me. I mean, what am I doing here? Molecules! Molecules! Okay. So, the Big Bang is about the evolution of the universe from when it started until now. And you've got the first few hundreds of thousands of years in which the first particles happen to be created. So we have the birth of electrons, we have the birth of the first protons, neutrons, etc. And then you have the birth of the first atoms. When you have the first atoms, you can have the first molecules. You remember what molecules are? Molecules are groups of atoms. So you can't have the Big Bang with two molecules. Do you understand? It's... And another thing, just to make this clear, the Big Bang, if you want to talk about the origin of the universe, it was about how everything in the universe, everything you see, energy, matter, everything, space and time, were in one point with infinite density. Everything that exists now was in one point with infinite density, and then it expanded. We have an expansion of space and time, etc., etc., the matter, energy, and voila, the universe we see here today. But there's nothing close to the saying two molecules collided and combusted and created the Big Bang. This is so...
Some evolutionists agree with the theory of the primordial soup, the goo of life. Whatever the cause may have been, you have to account for the cause of the cause.
So if the cause of the cause is God, what's the cause of the cause of the cause? What caused God? And what caused God to cause the cause of the cause? Plus another thing, the origin of life is still not clear, but is the mechanisms that can lead to the origin of life, starting with organic chemistry, are fully understood. Okay, so there are parts that are still unclear, but we understand how organic chemistry can lead to biotic chemistry.
Where did those molecules come from? Where did that primordial goo come from? Now, from where I'm standing, we only have two options. One, the primordial goo has always existed, which automatically creates a problem because atheists don't believe in the supernatural. For something to have always existed indicates a supernatural entity, so that one has to be ruled out.
What can I say? The things you are saying are far beyond my wildest imagination. This is incredible. I mean, wow. Of course, primordial soup didn't always existed. As I said earlier, there's an evolution. There's an evolution of the universe, evolution of the atoms. You can see how from subatomic particles you arrive to atoms, then you have chemistry, then you have, of course, to arrive to chemistry you need fusion of stars, which leads to the formation of all the elements in the periodic table, and then you have chemistry, organic chemistry, and voila, the primordial soup from which eventually you get life. It didn't always existed, of course it didn't.
Which leaves us with option 2. The primordial goo was created. This indicates a supreme being, which goes against the very fundamental foundations of atheism, so yeah. It seems to me that atheists have a little bit of a problem because you can't account for the origins of life without God.
So just to make this clear, you're saying that the primordial soup existed and was created by God. Okay, so let's just say that it was created by God. So you're saying that there was a primordial soup. So you're saying that there was a primordial soup in which there was prebiotic chemistry from which life originated. So if God created the primordial soup, God didn't create life, right? God just created the ingredients for life. And then these ingredients worked together and gave birth to life, right? So God didn't create life. Congratulations, you've just disproved the origin of life because of God.
It really doesn't matter which way you twist it, it just doesn't add up. Unless someone can account for the origins of life without God, I don't see any reason to consider atheism a logical faith.
If you want to know more about the origin of life, please Google it. I'm gonna leave a lot of links down below about the origin of life and what we know about abiogenesis, and go check it out. And about the last thing you said, the atheism is not a belief system. It's not faith-based, okay? You can't say atheism is a faith-based system because there's no faith involved in atheism. Atheism is very simply just which means without, theism, which means the hypothesis that a divinity exists. So atheists are just people which don't consider the hypothesis that a divinity could exist, because there's no apparent reason why we should consider that. That's all.
As a Christian, I also have a very high regard for reason, and I highly respect anyone, atheist or otherwise, who are truly able to thoroughly reason.
So finally, something we can completely agree upon. As an atheist, I fully encourage everyone who thinks with their mind, so Muslim, Christian, atheist, it doesn't count. Hope to hear from you soon. I'll leave this video as a response, and I'm curious about what you think about it. So for the viewers, this is it for now. I made some small cuts to his video, and if you want to watch it full length, you'll find the link below, his video I mean. And this is it. Thanks for watching. I'm Dreaming House, and I hope you dreamed then too.